Donald Rumsfeld was a divisive figure. What was his legacy? What is his legacy in your view?
Oh, history will probably judge him most harshly for the U.S. invasion of Iraq, and in particular for the manipulation of the intelligence that was required to build the political support for that invasion. But his career is actually much more complicated. He was the United States' youngest defense secretary, serving, as you mentioned, in a general fold, and his second oldest, and really quite a consequential figure in American history. 3 times as a United States congressman, CEO of 3 different companies, and as somebody who spent 25 years in Washington, D.C. myself, a real giant in the field of defense, security, and foreign policy. So really had a really impact on the country. My guess is his probably most famous quote will be that there are known unknowns, there are known knowns, known unknowns, and the thing that he was focused on is the known unknowns, a wonderful epistemology that I think will affect all of us in this field.
Yeah, a remarkable life, no doubt about that. Gordon, just moving on, I know you've been following very closely what's going on in the United States when it comes to COVID numbers, the vaccination rollout. Obviously, the vaccination rollout, they're way ahead of Australia in terms of getting jabs in arms. It does seem like the US is starting to go back to something resembling normality.
Well, they have, whether it's air travel or people being able to move around with masks, they've largely moved in that direction even before the vaccination rates were sufficiently high. The U.S. is starting to stall a bit in terms of the levels of vaccinations. The U.S. President Joe Biden had set as a goal to have 70% of the American populace vaccinated by the 4th of July, which is just 3 days away. That's not going to happen. Rates of resistance, particularly in states that tend to tilt more to the conservative spectrum, have been much higher than anticipated. But they're hovering right around 55%. People having at least one jab, only slightly less than 50% who are fully vaccinated. And that's only of the entire population, not just the eligible population. So clearly much better than us. The real measure there is the availability of vaccines. The country is awash in vaccines. I read a report this morning that if you arrive in LAX, there's a long line of tables that'll give you a jab as soon as you walk into the country, no matter who you are. And they're pretty much available at every corner shop and drugstore in the United States or chemist. And so that's not the issue. There really is much more of a political issue now in terms of increasing rates further.
I was interested to see a report coming out of North Korea about Kim Jong-un declaring that there'd been grave mistakes made in his country. And that comes after North Korea's really been denying, haven't they, for 18 months or so, that they've had any COVID in the country?
Yeah, we've seen very public struggles with COVID in countries like India and now Indonesia. And throughout it all, one of the poorest countries in the world and one of the most isolated countries in the world, North Korea, has denied that they've had any problem with the vaccine, or rather with the pandemic. This rather cryptic remark about serious mistakes or dramatic mistakes in North Korea is cause for concern for the people of North Korea, just given their isolation, given the inevitable economic impact that they've felt after being cut off for the last year and a half from the rest of the world. And the worry is that with a weakened health system, with a weakened population, that COVID could really rampage through that country in a serious way.
Do we have a clear sense, Gordon, of just how bad things are there?
We do not. And again, as somebody who studied this for the better part of 30 years, that's what's really concerning to me. In the past, I traveled to North Korea numerous times in the late 1990s in the midst of a horrendous famine that by many accounts led to 1 million to 2 million deaths. And yet, even traveling in the country had such limited visibility about what was actually happening. It was only afterwards, reading first-person accounts, that I realized how horrible things were and was haunted. And my gut feeling is now that there's going to be similar stories coming out of North Korea about this time today, and yet the world remains unaware of the horrors that are taking place behind closed doors.
Yeah, so much misery right around the world, feeling for the people of North Korea as well. Gordon Flake, appreciate your analysis with us as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.